Hi, thanks for tuning into this Company of Heroes theory video. This is going to be discussing the very small competitive advantage that can be taken by alt panning your camera to face south if you are in the north spawn on a map. It's also going to be discussing why map makers should by default not try and make maps completely north versus completely south, either at an angle or preferably horizontal west versus east. Let's go over to a map I have set up for you. This, of course, is Crossing in the Woods, which is a famous north-south split map, which is very asymmetrical. It's got a long-standing history in the game of players tending to favour playing south and not favour playing north, and several players already rotate their camera. Best way to do it, by the way, is to go into tap map and do it. It's much more simple. Just hold down Alt and turn your mouse. And the idea is that the viewing pane, which is this represented by this trapezoid here, will have more of north in it than south in it in the default position. So therefore, if you're facing north and you want to see more of your enemy's movements, you should change the angle. I'm going to prove that to you now, how it works. Let me just go to the default position. The trapezoid, if I were to rotate like this and look directly at the ground, becomes a square, indicating that the ratio of north versus south, the aspect ratio, enters 1, 1. And then if we go back, the trapezoid widens out. Therefore, we're seeing way more of the enemy's positions than we would otherwise want. But of course, you're not actually setting up your own prepared position. So in this game, as you can see, I've set up MGs in the house here. Let me go back to default. MGs in the house. I've got a combat engineer as well, just to give a bit of spotting. And of course, I want to take into account where my enemy's attacking me from. In this case, he's set up a monster flank and he's emerging from 4 different directions. From the default position, of course, it is possible. You'll notice in order to get as much of the units into view as possible, I have to really push the camera quite far south to get it happening. Do you see that? In order to get these 3 units in the view at the same time, I have to go like this. So I'm missing half of the map, half of it's in the fog of war, or I can't even get these 3 guys in view. If we go to rotated view, you can see that it suddenly becomes a lot easier to see my units, what's represented outside the fog of war, and my enemy's units. It is, in fact, possible to get 3 in the view at the same time quite easily. And that is proof in the pudding. That is what I'm trying to say here. At this point in time, I'm playing with my MGs, I'm setting them up, but I can also see the enemy's movements. Therefore, I'm seeing more of the battlefield. From default, I haven't got a chance, to be honest. I'm having to nuke half of my screen into the fog of war just to see where the enemy's coming at me. I'm having to really go south. And of course you can see tap map. A lot of players play with tap map. Increasingly in this community it's becoming a meme. If you don't play with tap map, you're never getting close to the top 200. And I agree. A lot of players play with tap map. But if you give yourself a double advantage, I mean, what's stopping you? It doesn't take you long to realise that Crossing in the Woods is a symmetrical map. So why would you play at a disadvantage here? What is the point? I'm not trying to suggest this is game breaking, this is massive, this is going to change you forever. This is just going to be an incremental efficiency saving. Jove, for example, was number 1 all 5 factions, dominated every tournament of 2016, the ESL era at least, and he was playing every north type position he ever played, he played with a rotated view. So it's clear that I'm not the first person to think this. So don't just discount it because I'm a scrub player and I'm a tournament organizer and caster by trade. This could be very, very interesting, I believe. So let's just quickly go over to a different view. Whilst we're actually going to go through the auto match maps. I think that's probably a good idea. We'll do that in a second. Just going to load out of Crossing in the Woods, and we're just going to go through the auto match map pool, and we're going to talk about north-south and why some maps this doesn't seem to have an effect on and others it does. So, because your head's probably racing to try and contradict what I've said, because it is, some people have accepted it and some people think, yeah, it's a pretty good opinion, I don't think it's game breaking, but it probably does have an effect. And then other people have been quite derisory, I've noticed today, and condescending, and I didn't appreciate it, to be fair. Because for one, I think I'm right, but for two, I don't think it's like that out there to think that this could be the case. So I've got the map pool ready now. Let's have a little look at it. Arnhem Checkpoint, they made this way more symmetrical, but still to this day, players massively prefer south. Faymonville Approach has a fantastic 60-degree angle rotation, which is, makes it a great map. Holodny Ferma is west-east, although east has trickier time controlling their own munitions, but other than that. Longres isn't quite north-south, but famously south has always had an easier time. This was previously put down to the fact that you can keep your cutoff easier and the hedgerows aren't as much, of a problem. But yeah, I think that map's been balanced out with barbed wire put on the green cover outside the north base, etc. And I'm not sure where that stands in the scheme of things anymore. North also has a better control of the large open field to the north of the victory point, which means that they can lay down support weapon fire very easily. Angerville, famously, south had a trickier time in that southeast quadrant because of the hedgerows, the garrison, the stone walls. Now it's been opened up again. I would argue that south is largely favoured. Bayo, the mapmaker Spanky, is in agreement with this philosophy, and he's changing it to west versus east because it's a small difference, But why not take advantage of it? And I believe south has had somewhat of an easier time on that map, but I think not many people play that map, to be fair, at the moment. Nexus is west-east purely. Lost Glider. Now there is a map where south has had a far easier time in people's estimations, and also it's a map with a lot of sight blockers. So sight blockers in this theory should make it harder to spot your enemy, of course, and you need the ability to see where your enemy is emerging from. But there's the one that we really need to discuss. It is indeed Crossroads. I think Novograd, by the way, that's a north-south map. I think that's favoured south. Just trying to see. No, that's it. So we have to discuss Crossroads and why that doesn't fit this and why it is the most balanced map of all time for 1v1. So let's load into it right now. Now, I mean, you can all imagine Crossroads, but I just want to bring it up on screen because this would feel like the anomaly to this style of thinking. But I know the history of Crossroads. I was involved in the original beta build in Company of Heroes 1, Argentine Crossroads. I was involved in bringing it to Company of Heroes 2, in highlighting it, playing show matches on it, and canvassing Relic to include it. I've got a good history with this map, and I know exactly. I was also a key giver of feedback in its final version. So let's just open up the Fog of War so we can see a little bit more, get rid of our opponent. Right then, why is this map pretty bloody well balanced? Well, you see this area here? This allows the north player to traverse west and east with ease. That entire area there. That is the key to making Crossroads a balanced map. South position has a huge movement blocker here and has actually, to make it more balanced, because originally North had an easier time on this map than South. That was what all statistics showed us. This gap was opened. Okay? So what I'm talking about isn't bullshit. South used to have a worse position than North. Very similar to Angoville. The traversability of the map as a southern player, the ability to react to your opponents, was hampered by the obstacles of the map. So they've recently been opened up. North still has a huge gap advantage here, so they can go from west to east more easily when occupying North. It also is worth noting that it isn't actually pure north-south. It is actually at a 60-degree angle, and yes, it's on a tilt. So that is why Crossroads is balanced. I believe that fits in with what I'm trying to tell you guys, that this is a small incremental difference. It matters to the theory of Company Heroes play and map making. Thank you for watching. Eager to hear your comments in the YouTube video, and hopefully watch this with an open mind, and be on the lookout for some awesome casting content this weekend. Cheers and goodbye.